I don't do action timelines very often, but here's one that I figured that I just had to get to because for a 3-entry franchise, the missing in action films make surprisingly little sense. And besides, timeline fan Keith would kill me if I did not cover it. But just to be clear here, and I guess just to get this right out of the way, there will be no like Chuck Norris can dribble a bowling ball type jokes in his video. This is a very serious subject. It's the Vietnam War and POWs, not really a joking matter. Besides, if I want to joke, I'll just watch the new Walker Texas Ranger show, am I right? This all starts in 1984 with Missing in Action, directed by Joseph Zito, who horror fans will know as the director of early slasher flick Blood Rage, or the Savini Splatterfest Prowler, or Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, otherwise known as The Best One. And the same year that that movie came out, he also did, this, an action film starring Chuck Norris. We start off in Vietnam, and this ain't Texas, but we got a ranger who distracts this guy long enough for him to not pay attention to his surroundings and get shot. Nice going, Colonel James Braddock. And no, this isn't the Cinderella Man, nor is it Jamie Braddock from Marvel, but it's all a dream, and Braddock is at home, haunted by news of MIAs. He's watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which ran from 81 to 83, so we're past 81 at least, and he heads off with an investigation team and meets Lo Pan. It seems James was a prisoner of war and he's referred to as a war criminal, as we get a profile on him saying that he's 38 years old, was a prisoner of war for 8 months, was missing in action for 7 years, and escaped last year. So, considering that the war ended in 1975, if he was caught at the very end of it, it would be about 9 years later? So, real time 84? Not sure yet. A co-worker stops by for a drink, so Jim just strips down because I'm sure that won't make anyone uncomfortable, and James Hong once again gets killed with a well-thrown knife. They head to Thailand and track down Harv and find the worst arms dealer ever. Braddock goes to haggle and they let him on board with the guns, which he promptly points at them like, is this the first time this guy ever sold weapons? How did he not see this tactic coming? He's then basically attacked by everyone, everywhere, eventually making his way back to the Nam, and single-handedly destroys an entire village of guys holding hostages. But the American POWs were moved, so he finds them leading up to that trademark shot, and they escape, but Tucker sacrifices himself as a diversion. 1 year later, in 1985, a sequel arrived with Missing in Action 2, The Beginning, directed by Lance Houle, one of only 4 films he directed, and it's a prequel to the original. But, wait a minute. Hold on. This is where this gets interesting, and this is why this video needed to be made. You see, both this movie and Zito's were filmed simultaneously, back to back, and this was the first movie. Zito's was the sequel, but after having both films in their hands, Canon took a look at them and realized that part 2 was actually the better one and their greater chance of turning a profit. So they released it first and bumped Houle's to the sequel spot and changed it so that it was a prequel instead of the other way around. It seems they were right because Missing in Action 1 made $6 million in its first weekend and became one of Canada's most successful films ever. This one starts in 1972 in Vietnam, and we meet Braddock for what was supposed to be the first time, but well, you know. Him and his men are deemed missing in action, and we're told that it's 10 years later. So it's 1982 now. And they're still being held, and Creighton Duke is here, and I guess I should point out that they say that all the men would go free if Braddock will confess to war crimes, but he won't, and all his guys back him up on it. And look, maybe this is an honor thing or something, but the dude's being held for his life, like they're not planning on letting him go, or his men. I mean, what's the point of holding out and basically ruining all the other soldiers' lives? They say that half of them have died there, so I don't know, to me that's kind of a silly pride thing. maybe I'm just talking tough, but I would like to think that I'd be like, okay, I'm spending my whole life here, or they kill me, but all these guys can just go home? Am I wrong for thinking he's kind of selfish here? They get tortured, and then this happens.
What's that? The chopper. A Huey. Sounds American.
I love that a couple of guys who've been locked away for 10 years know what an American helicopter sounds like. Like they can tell the difference between it and other choppers. Eventually, James does confess, but is double crossed, so I guess so much for my whole rant. And then finally, he manages to break free, so they go on the hunt for him. James returns to the camp to free his friends, and then does a whole Rambo thing on them. Nestor redeems himself, but is killed, and Braddock takes on the head of the camp, mano a mano, but spares him. Oh wait, no he doesn't. He blows him up real good. Now, this film does establish the timeline pretty thoroughly, giving us the year that he was captured as 72, saying it's 10 years later on the TV, making it 82, and then the first film said that he escaped a year ago, so that one is in 83. The trilogy was completed a few years later with 1988's Braddock Missing in Action 3, which was actually directed by Chuck's brother, Aaron Norris. Oddly, it starts in 1975 in Saigon, and we see Braddock, and he's not missing in action, so this contradicts the opening of part 1. He has a wife there, and James mistakenly believes she's killed. Childs is here, and here's the kicker. Braddock leaves Vietnam. This is 75. The war is ending. Everyone is getting out. That's what's happening here. The US troops are getting out of Dodge. There'd be a very slim margin of time for him to end up a POW. We then jump to present day, and James is here, and we find out his wife is still alive and has a 12-year-old son. Given that she wasn't showing as pregnant, she probably gave birth 6 to 9 months later, makes it closer to 13 years since the opening, so we're probably in real time 88 then, and he's warned to not step on any toes.
I don't step on toes, little John. I step on necks.
So, of course, he immediately just starts causing a ruckus with a jet boat, and finally is reunited with his wife and kid. And it's really weird because he's all like, I didn't know you were dead, so I understand why you think I abandoned you all these years, but doesn't he have another damn good reason? Wasn't he locked away for 10 years? He never even mentions that. It's never like, I thought you were dead, and then I was captured and spent a long time in a camp here. Then they meet up with Viet Cong forces, and Lin is killed, and Braddock and son are captured. There's also a subplot in which they take away all the kids from an orphanage too, because they just really want you to know that this general is a jerk, and to hammer that home, we've got Kid Creeper here. Of course, Braddock goes in and, as expected, is able to easily shoot about 30 people, but thankfully no one is able to shoot him. Braddock frees the kids and dashes to the Thai border, and Braddock and his son bond by having him be the one to shoot down a helicopter. To reiterate, there is a helicopter equipped with guns and missiles. James and his son have a gun and are on the ground, and they win. So here's the thing, I'm going with the notion that this film is its own continuity. It just doesn't make sense to fit this in with the other two films. Not only does the timeline not make sense, Braddock acts completely different. In the second film, a point is also made that he's told that his wife has given up on him and is marrying someone else. There's even a point in that one in which she sends him a letter. And yet, in this one, while in Saigon, he's married to a woman that he presumes is dead. So, he's either married to 2 different women, or this is just a new timeline and he wasn't captured in this one. In this universe, Braddock went home after the war, adjusted to life, and 12 years later had to return to free his son. So there you have it, 3 movies with a timeline that doesn't make any sense. It's really weird because, yeah, the second movie was supposed to be the first movie, and instead it ended up being the sequel. So yeah, it's a prequel. And in the third movie, they just decided to throw everything away and just be like, I guess it's a different story now. Okay. I find it strange. It's very clear that they wanted to tell the story of the dad reuniting with his son that he didn't know he had. But I'm not quite sure why they needed to throw away the idea that he was in a POW camp to make that work. I feel like it still would have worked if he was kept away from knowing that he even had a son because he was locked in a prison somewhere. It still makes sense, so I don't understand that at all. If you do, tell me in the comments below, or just comment anything that you like about this particular set of movies, or anything really. Just comment something. And also please like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it out there to the world, put it on your Facebook, throw it on Reddit, whatever you want. Just share it out there. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you feel like it, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines and help support this channel. These guys are my patrons and they do that, and I really appreciate them for it. But I also appreciate you guys for just watching the videos. Thank you very much for doing that, and I'll see you very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.